Coined in 2018 on a thread between Truncate and Berlin-based producer Shifted, claiming, "Business techno is the new tech house." Let's backtrack for a second and talk about how this term even came about in the first place. Techno music fans often pride themselves in being non-mainstream, and so the fact that techno is getting more and more commercialized has led to the derogatory term of business techno. Many people have already labeled certain artists as business techno for years and years now. However, no one can definitively agree on what the parameters of business techno is and what isn't. Going barometer is pretty much, you'll know when you hear it. Some people have used the term to describe techno events with bottle service, while other people have used it on artists who continuously play at large-scale EDM events. But the underlying thread is the same. It has money, it's booking the same DJ acts with mildly different crowds week after week. The common perception of a business techno DJ are people who have a lot of following on Instagram and are happy to lend their personal image, name, and likeness to corporate sponsorships. And in contrast to the roots of techno, these people are here to make money. So let's talk about the very few positives to this phenomenon. Using this working definition, some might argue that business techno is actually a great entry point for people who've never been exposed to this type of music before they delve into deeper sounds in the deeper catalogs. Unsurprisingly, some of the more obscure stuff just does not appeal to the untrained ear. And just because the general public is now seeking out techno events and joining in on the fun would necessarily translate into a negative paradigm shift for the techno community. If the general public comes in and truly embraces the music and culture, this could only lead to a greater prosperity for the techno community. Sounds great, right? Well, a lot of these things are easier said than done in practice. So let's move on to the negatives, which are going to take up the bulk of this conversation. Ironically, we're already starting out on the wrong foot by using the term business techno, as it already has a negative connotation in itself. It is important to add that oftentimes, though not exclusively, that there is a misogynistic element to this discourse where a lot of young, talented women DJs are being put to the test and oftentimes labeled as business techno DJs. Unsurprisingly, most of the bigger acts in the scene are men who are a lot less likely to be attacked for being money or image focused than some of their female counterparts. It just seems that once someone is successful, people will find different ways of shooting someone down based on either the fact that they're not music focused enough or they are just another business techno DJ, and these accusations need to be put to a stop. That being said, one very legitimate concern is when business techno starts to alter an artist's vision once they become bigger and more known. This is not a new phenomenon, it's a historic trend between artists and sometimes even genres as a whole when money and popularity come into play. This is not to say that techno artists haven't already been evolving to musical trends in their artistic vision, but now there is an added pressure from the financial aspect of things or whoever is funding them to create popular things that will appease to the public. Again, not to say that every artist who gets financial funding will lose their artist integrity, but it is an added risk and pressure. Another legitimate concern is the potential change to the community itself, as a lot of techno lovers pride themselves in also being very well behaved and tend to look out for one another. Well, the good news is the older members of the community should definitely try and spread the word and educate newer members of the community who might honestly be very receptive and just aren't used to the standards that this community is being upheld to. The final negative I wanted to touch on in this video is inevitably when something goes mainstream or is popular, ticket prices will inflate, basic supply and demand economics. Obviously, artists who have consistently put out great music should be rewarded financially with higher ticket prices and are commended for that. But once a techno artist hits the mainstream crowd, Tickets are going to be a lot more difficult to get their hands on and might actually hurt the wallets of the diehard fans in the first place. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that a lot of people are just willing to shell out hundreds of dollars because it's the cool thing to do. And it seems to be happening at a rate that has been unprecedented and just not something that the dance community was prepared for. And yes, to state the obvious, this has everything to do with social media, especially TikTok, but I will not go into that in this conversation per se. Finally, to a few concluding remarks, starting with Techno legend Sven Vass' elaborate no-comment response to the topic. Instead, he hopes to focus on the positive progressions of the techno music scene. He cites that that's the way it always works in music, fashion, tourism, and many other areas of the entertainment industry, and that generally we should always have a respectful attitude towards authorship. Unfortunately, because of the constant availability nowadays, most of the time people often no longer perceive where something comes from and whom it comes from. And with that, again, it comes to the responsibility of the techno community ourselves to champion the local acts that you love and to help spread awareness to other people who are interested in learning more about the scene. Definitely take that extra step instead of just labeling things that are business techno and letting all of that become business as usual.